Hello, I'm Jeremy Vine, and this is Panorama. Tonight, Russian poison in a very British cuppa.
And he just took this cup of tea, and how he later said tea wasn't very tasty.
An agent dies an agonizing death, and a city is contaminated with radiation. Tonight, his widow points the finger at a president.
If she says that Russia has killed Sasha, she's a liar in this world.
Welcome to the program, and welcome to a world of espionage and assassination, which most of us thought belonged to the Cold War. Panorama has, like Scotland Yard, been following the trail of radioactive poison, trying to make sense of the killing of Alexander Litvinenko. We've discovered evidence they tried to kill him not once, but twice. His widow, Marina, says he was silenced because he knew too many secrets.
November the 1st, 2006, the day they poisoned Alexander Litvinenko. Heading for London that day, a mysterious Italian investigator carrying with him a warning that Litvinenko was a dead man walking.
I received weeks before November 1st several messages from a source mentioning a growing alarm, a growing risk, and Litvinenko was mentioned several times.
Also converging on London, 3 Russians, all coming to meet one man, Litvinenko.
Oh, he never tried to be extra protected, like camera or special bodyguard, and he every time felt very safe in London, and he was very happy here.
He set off late morning from his North London home. The former spy, known as Sasha to his friends, took the bus. Litvinenko had arranged a late lunch with Scaramella. The two men shared an obsession for rooting out Russian spies in Europe.
We say it simply, let's meet as always, which means Piccadilly Circus. When we meet, we exchanged kisses. He gave one and they gave two. I said it's Italian way.
The Russian had been feeding the Italian top-secret information about his old bosses in the KGB, now rebranded the FSB.
He cooperated for 3 years with us. He passed so strong information, and some of this information were lethal information, to say. Other people have been killed for this kind of cooperation.
In return, Scaramella wanted to warn his friend that he'd received a death list with both their names on it.
The email was the reasons why I contacted him.
Litvinenko had soup, Scaramella just water. 4:30 p.m., the Pine Bar, the Millennium Hotel. Litvinenko drops in on his Russian contact, Andrei Lugovoy, and his friends. They're drinking ahead of that night's game between Arsenal and CSKA Moscow. They're on the gin. Litvinenko had a cuppa.
I knew about 2 meetings. Scaramella, when Sasha had lunch, and second meeting with Lugovoy, very short meeting, he told me, very short.
He arranged to meet up with the Russians the next day, and then made his way home.
Just exactly before midnight, he became sick. And when it started, and repeated it, and every 20 minutes, it was quite scary.
Litvinenko himself suspected foul play. His KGB training told him something was seriously wrong.
And he said, it looked like chemical weapons. I said, why, Sasha? And he started to concern, Marina, they could poison me. I said, who? How's possible? And why you think about this? Because he said, it's everything so unusual.
His condition baffled the doctors. They'd already tested for all known poisons. Then they suspected radiation poisoning, and they even checked with the Geiger counter, but found nothing.
I noticed his hair, when I just touched his head, all his hair would still be in my head. I said, Sasha, what is it? He said, I don't know. When I did it again, it's again all his hair in my hand.
These pictures, shot by his filmmaker friend Andrei Nekrasov, show Litvinenko's last days. Even 2 weeks after the poisoning, nobody knew what was killing him.
He looked completely different. He tried just every time protect me, to say, Marina, don't worry, everything will be okay. I tried to protect him, to say, Sasha, it just couldn't happen. And you see, we never spoke about death, never. Every day you could see he became worse. Every day it was fight for life.
This is the iconic image of the dying spy that was flashed around the world. And this is his friend's footage of the real Litvinenko before his terrifying transformation. He described what it's like to be on the run from the KGB. He knew he'd be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life.
It's like free fall. It's only terrifying when you're jumping from the plane, when you look down. But after the jump, there isn't much you can do about it. You're in free fall. You can't go back. You can only go downwards.
Like many of his fellow countrymen, Litvinenko found refuge in what they call Londongrad. Mega-rich Russians, such as Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich, like Britain because it's safe and stable. Other Russians come here because they can speak out. One exile is Boris Berezovsky, Putin's fiercest critic and Britain's richest asylum seeker by about £1 billion. Back in Russia, Litvinenko, as a bodyguard, had saved Berezovsky's life twice, and he'd worked for him again in London. Litvinenko attacked Putin personally, with some say reckless abandon. But who wanted him dead? Some of the shadowy exiles, or his old KGB masters back home?
There were two ideologies in the Soviet Union, communist and criminal. In 1991, the communist ideology ceased to exist, and only the criminal remained. The KGB was renamed. It became the FSB. But nothing really changed. Everything stayed the way it was before. The only difference was that a KGB officer killed for his ideology, while an FSB officer kills for money.
The Russian secret police, both the old guard and the new privatized version, have the same code of silence. Litvinenko was a traitor to both.
The last day when he could speak, and I was ready to go to home, and he just told me, Marina, I love you so much. It was last what I heard from him. Because in a night, during the night after this, first time when his heart stopped.
Whoever killed him would have expected him to die in a few days, and the poison would never have been discovered. It was only because he clung on to life for 23 days that the doctors had the chance to discover the truth.
They arrived just after 2:00 a.m. and they told me what was funded and what killed Sasha. And again, I saw people just don't know what to do. And they were very honest with me because they don't have any practice with polonium-210.
To Litvinenko's assassin, polonium-210 was the ultimate stealth poison. In hospital, the doctors don't test for it. In the international airports, it won't trigger any radiation alarms. But once the British scientists had cracked it, it's polonium-210. Then it became as easy as following a burglar's footprints in the snow.
Once you've got an open radioactive source of this type and of this size, then it's almost inevitable that you're going to be able to detect a whole spider web of contamination coming out. So you can always follow a trail. You will always have a forensic trail with radioactivity, which you can follow from one place to another place.
We're going to follow that trail. Litvinenko caught the 134 on November the 1st. No trace of polonium on his ticket or the bus. He was clean. The Itsu sushi bar? Everybody reported that the sushi bar was contaminated and that Scaramella had tested positive for a massive dose of polonium.
Did you kill him? Did you have poison him? Did you have any part in this poison plot yourself?
Absolutely. Not only I have not killed him, of course, but I think my role in this history is very marginal. I simply meet him in the same day something horrible happened.
How come the sushi bar was contaminated?
I know they closed because they found the polonium, but seems it was not in the place where we seated. So lots of things must be clarified. Where we seated, there is no polonium.
The sushi bar laid a false trail. Scaramella is a red herring. The Italian was probably never contaminated. We understand that Aldermaston got that wrong. We also understand that the police aren't investigating a single attack, but a series of attempts to kill Litvinenko. To get to the start of the polonium trail, we need to go back in time. Two weeks before, on October the 16th, staying at the Parks Hotel in Knightsbridge, Andrei Lugovoy, once a KGB officer, now a millionaire, and his friend Dmitry Kovtun, also ex-KGB. 2 rooms at the hotel are later tested for polonium. The result? Contaminated. The polonium trail begins. During this earlier trip, Lugovoy and Kovtun meets Litvinenko for lunch in his usual place, the Itsu sushi bar on Piccadilly. The restaurant, contaminated. But not at the same seats which Scaramella and Litvinenko would use 2 weeks later. Could this have been the first attempt to kill him? October the 25th, Lugovoy returns to London and checks in at the Sheraton Park Lane Hotel. He meets Litvinenko 2 or 3 times during this trip. One hotel room at the hotel is left a radioactive mess. Today, not just one room, but a whole section of the 8th floor corridor is still boarded up. Was this a second botched attempt? On October 28th, Lugovoy flies back to Russia on British Airways flight GBN-WX. And you've guessed it, at least one seat in the plane, contaminated. On the same day, Kovtun arrives in Hamburg and sees his children, a toddler and a baby, who live with his ex-wife. And they are contaminated. Lugovoy and Kovtun next meet with Litvinenko on the day he's poisoned, November the 1st. It's 4:30 p.m. at the Pine Bar, the Millennium Hotel, just an hour after the sushi bar. This is when the polonium trail gets really hot. Lugovoy and Kovtun are drinking with a third Russian, Vyacheslav Sokolenko. Business was done for the day, and they were relaxing ahead of the game. Litvinenko doesn't touch alcohol, but he'll always have a cuppa.
In Millennium Hotel, Sasha told me he met Lugovoy, and during this meeting he drank tea, and he said it was tea already served on the table, and he just took this cup of tea and didn't finish at all, and how he later said tea wasn't very tasty.
The polonium trail across London implies but Litvinenko's tea had been laced with polonium-210. The dose was massive. We estimate 4 billion becquerels. The normal level in the body is just 20.
If he was contaminated in this way, then when he drank it, all around his lips and mouth would have been contaminated with radioactivity. There would also be a lot left in the cup. So he might have wiped his mouth with his hand like this, which people do. Then this becomes heavily contaminated. He could then put the hand back onto the table, so that you start a contamination trail.
And the contamination trail at the Pine Bar is astounding. The cup that contained the tea, contaminated. The 7 bar staff at the hotel who took the cup away, washed it, wiped it, set it out for other guests, contaminated. The Pine Bar itself, contaminated and still closed, 2.5 months on. The contamination itself isn't lethal, but long-term risks are not known. Lugovoy and Kovtun go to the match. Seats at the Arsenal, contaminated. Everything points to not one, but multiple attempts to kill Litvinenko. No one's been arrested, but the polonium trail has made Lugovoy and Kovtun prime suspects. After Litvinenko fell sick, they flew to Moscow. After Litvinenko died, so did Scotland Yard.